English 1A, Reading and Composition. Today's lecture is on academic writing. Writing about text and constructing reasonable arguments. In college writings, you pose questions, explore ideas, and engage in scholarly debates and conversations. You will analyze and respond to text, evaluate other people's arguments, and put forth your own ideas. The word text can refer to a variety of works, including essays, articles, government reports, books, websites, advertisements, and photographs. Summary and text analysis. A summary is neutral in tone and demonstrates that you understand the author's key ideas. Analysis assignments vary, but they usually ask you to look at how the text parts contribute to its central argument or purpose, often with the aim of judging its evidence or overall effect. You will need to read a text to write about it or view a visual text several times to discover meaning. Two techniques will help you move beyond a superficial first reading. 1. Annotating the text with your observation and questions, and 2. Outlining the text key points. Read actively. Annotate the text. Read actively by jotting down your questions and thoughts in a notebook or in the margin of the text or visual. Use a pencil instead of a highlighter so you can underline key concepts, mark points, or circle elements that intrigue you. If you make changes, pencils can be erased. To annotate an electronic document, take notes in a separate file or use software features to highlight, underline, or insert comments. Sketch a brief outline of the text. After reading, reread, and annotate a text, try to outline it. In your outline, put the author's thesis and key points in your own words. Visuals. You must sometimes infer the meaning beneath the image surface and interpret its central point and supporting ideas from the elements of its design. One way to outline a visual text is to try to define its purpose and sketch a list of its key elements. Summarize to demonstrate your understanding. When summarizing a text, state the work's main idea and key points simply, briefly, and accurately in your own words. You must make judgments about what is most important, but do not judge the author in your summary. Summarizing a visual text. To summarize a visual text, begin with who created the visual, who the intended audience is, where the visual appeared, and when it was created. Briefly explain the visual's main point or purpose and identify its key elements. Analyze to demonstrate your critical thinking. A summary most often answers the question of what a text says, and an analysis looks at how a text makes its point. Include an introduction that briefly summarizes the text, a thesis that states your own judgment about the text, and body paragraphs that support your thesis with evidence before concluding. If you have written a summary of the text or visual, you may find it useful to refer to the main points of the summary as you write your analysis. Constructing reasonable argument. In writing an argument, you take a stand on a debatable issue. The question being debated might be a matter of public policy. Example, should religious groups be allowed to meet on public school property? Reasonable men and women also disagree about many scholarly issues. When you construct a reasonable argument, your aim is to explain your understanding of the truth about a subject or to propose the best solution to a problem without being needlessly combative. Your aim is to convince readers to reconsider their position by offering new reasons to question existing viewpoints. Examine your issue's social and intellectual contents. Public policy debates arise in social contexts and are conducted among groups with competing values and interests. Most public policy debates also have intellectual dimensions that address scientific or theoretical questions. Scholarly debates play out in intellectual contexts, but they have a social dimension as well. For example, scholars respond to the contributions of other specialists in the field, often building on others' views and refining them, but at times challenging them. You will be at a disadvantage if you are not informed. Conduct some research before preparing your argument. Consulting even a few sources can deepen your understanding of the debate surrounding your topic. View your audience as a panel of jurors. Do not assume that your audience already agrees with you. Instead, envision skeptical readers who, like a panel of jurors, will make up their minds after listening to all sides of the argument. When working with a word limit, you might not have the space to address all of the concerns. You might be primarily interested in reaching one segment of the general audience. In such instances, you can still view your audience as a panel of jurors. The jurors will simply be a less diverse group. Scholars in an academic discipline often disagree about particular issues. Once you see how they disagree about your issue, you should be able to imagine a jury that reflects the variety of positions they hold. In your argument, make sure your introduction contains a thesis that states your position on the issue you have chosen to debate. In the sentence leading up to the thesis, establish your credibility with readers by showing that you are knowledgeable and fair-minded. Build common grounds with readers who may not at first agree with your views and show them why they should consider your thesis. Tip: a good way to test a thesis while drafting and revising is to imagine a counter-argument to your argument. Back up your thesis with persuasive lines of argument. Arguments of any complexity contain lines of argument that, when taken together, might reasonably persuade readers that the thesis has merit. If you sum up your main lines of arguments, you will have a rough outline of your essay. Provide evidence for each of your claims in your paper. Support your central claim and any subordinate claims with evidence, facts, stats, examples, and illustrations, visuals, expert opinions, and so on. Document your sources to give credit to the authors and to show readers how to locate a source in case they want to assess its credibility or explore the issue further. Using facts and stats. A fact is something that is known with certainty because it has been objectively verified. Example: the capital of Wyoming is Cheyenne. Stats are collections of numerical facts. Example: alcohol abuse is a factor in nearly 40% of traffic fatalities. Writers often use stats in selective ways to strengthen their own positions. When using examples and illustration in combination with other forms of evidence, they flesh out an argument with details and specific instances by bringing it to life. Examples are often concrete and sometimes vivid, so they can reach readers in ways that statistics and abstract ideas cannot. Using visuals, charts, graphs, diagrams, photographs are used in almost every academic field to support arguments or to counter opposing arguments. Bar or line graphs, for instance, describe an organization's complex statistical data. Photographs can immediately convey abstract ideas. As you consider using visual evidence, ask yourself the following questions. Is the visual accurate, credible, or relevant? How will the visual appear to readers? Logically, ethically, emotionally. How will the visual evidence function? Will it provide background information, present complex numerical information, or an abstract idea? Lend authorities. Anticipate or refute counter arguments. Like all forms of evidence, visuals don't speak for themselves. You'll need to analyze and interpret the evidence to show readers how the visuals inform and support your argument. Citing expert opinion. Make sure that your source is an expert in the field you are writing about. When including expert testimony in your paper, you can summarize or paraphrase the expert's opinion, or you can quote the expert's exact words. You will, of course, need to document your source. Anticipate objections, counter opposing arguments. Indifferent or skeptical readers may resist your arguments. Drawing attention to an opposing point of view or contradictory evidence does not weaken your argument. It shows you as a reasonable and well-informed writer and ultimately strengthens your argument. Although there is no best place to offer opposing positions in your essay, it is useful to summarize the opposing position earlier in your essay, usually after stating your thesis, but before developing your own argument. Or you can anticipate objections paragraph by paragraph as you develop your case. Build common grounds. As you encounter opposing arguments, try to seek out one or two assumptions you might share with readers who do not initially agree with your views. To be persuaded, they must see intelligence and decent qualities in your argument. Otherwise, they will persist in their opposition. Evaluating arguments. In your reading and in your own writings, evaluate all arguments for logical and fairness. Many arguments can stand up to critical scrutiny. Sometimes, however, a line of argument that at first seems reasonable turns out to be illogical, unfair, or both. Distinguish between reasonable and false argument tactics. A number of unreasonable argumentative tactics are known as logical fallacies. Most of the fallacies, such as hasty generalizations and false analogies, are misguided or dishonest use of legitimate argumentative strategies. Generalizing, inductive reasoning. Writers and thinkers generalize all the time. When we draw a conclusion from an array of facts, we are engaged in inductive reasoning. Inductive reasoning deals in probability, not certainties. For a conclusion to be highly probable, it must be based on evidence that is sufficient, representative, and relevant. The fallacy known as hasty generalization is a conclusion based on insufficient or unrepresentative evidence. A stereotype is a hasty generalization about a group. Stereotyping is common because of our tendency to perceive selectively. Example, athletes are never strong students. We tend to see what we want to see. We notice evidence confirming our already formed opinions and fail to notice evidence to the contrary. Academic English. Many hasty generalizations contain words such as all, ever, always, and never, when qualifiers such as most, many, usual, and seldom would be more accurate. This concludes part 1 of academic writing. Part 2 will be separate.